Welcome to Curious Nightmares, the channel where your darkest fears and deepest curiosities collide. Prepare for spine-tingling tales and eerie explorations into the supernatural. Subscribe and stay tuned for hair-raising stories. I'm Maggie, a 28-year-old woman who's worked at the convenience store for a few years. I live alone in a cozy cottage on the edge of town, using my job to pay the bills while I chase my dream of becoming a writer. I'm passionate about writing, spending my evenings crafting stories and poems in the solitude of my home. But tonight, I was going to write about my own experience. As I left the dimly lit store, the eerie solitude of the late-night hour heightened my senses. The crescent moon cast a faint glow, barely illuminating the desolate road ahead. I hopped in my car, turned the key, and the engine roared to life. My heart raced as I began my 20-minute journey home. The winding road stretched through a forest that seemed to close in around me. Tall, gnarled trees cast eerie shadows on the asphalt, their branches swaying ominously in the cool breeze. My car's headlights cut through the darkness, offering brief glimpses of the forest's edge. My loyal golden retriever, Max, was my closest companion. Max provided comfort and companionship in the quiet hours of my writing, and he was with me on those late-night drives home. As I turned a bend, the radio suddenly crackled to life, sending shivers down my spine. I clenched the steering wheel to regain my composure, convinced it was just a radio glitch. But then, a chilling voice emerged from the static, whispering my name. "Maggie," it hissed, sending fear coursing through my veins. I couldn't fathom how someone knew my name. Was this some cruel prank? My unease deepened as I continued down the desolate road. Shadows danced in my peripheral vision, and the forest seemed to draw nearer. Trees loomed like monstrous sentinels, their branches forming grotesque shapes resembling contorted limbs, reaching for me. I cranked up the radio, hoping to drown out the unsettling whispers in the static, but the songs played at a warped, dissonant pitch, each note discordant and unsettling. My pulse quickened as I glanced in the rearview mirror and saw, for a split second, a ghostly face peering back at me from the back seat. I swerved, narrowly avoiding a collision, and pulled over at the roadside. My heart raced as I fumbled for my phone, only to find its battery had inexplicably drained. Panic set in as the whispers in the radio grew louder, echoing like a chorus of tormented souls. The trees outside closed in, their gnarled branches scraping against the glass. A spectral figure, a shrouded, wraith-like form, appeared by the car. Its bony fingers tapped on the window, and its hollow eyes locked onto mine. Paralyzed by terror, I watched as it reached for the door handle. The car's engine roared to life as if on its own, and the entity outside let out a bone-chilling wail. With a sickening screech, it was drawn into the car, vanishing into thin air. I sped away from the roadside, my car racing toward home, the radio finally returning to its normal programming. The night's events had shaken me to my core, leaving me questioning the boundaries between fiction and reality. The drive home had become a surreal nightmare, and I couldn't shake the feeling that I had ventured into a realm where the living and the supernatural merged. Then, another voice, colder and more malevolent than before, whispered through the static, "Do you really think they can save you, Maggie?" The figure advanced toward the car, its skeletal hand tapping menacingly on the window. I'll never forget the night when the mundane and the mysterious collided, changing my perspective on the world forever. I was left with a haunting dread, knowing I'd never truly escape the horrors of that night. The drive home had left me forever changed, and the line between reality and the supernatural had blurred in a way that would haunt me for the rest of my days. As I hit the gas pedal, the roar of my car's engine filled the night air. I was on Route 66, driving alone through the desolate stretches of highway. The only company I had was the rhythmic hum of my tires on the asphalt and the eerie glow of the moon above. The night was cold, and my breath formed fog on the windshield. The scenery outside was nothing but endless miles of darkness, occasionally broken by the dim glow of a distant streetlight. My hands gripped the steering wheel tightly as I kept my eyes on the road, the radio softly playing a classic rock station in the background. My mind wandered, thinking about the last time I had taken this route. It was years ago, and I had been with Emily, the love of my life. A sudden chill ran down my spine as I remembered the tragic accident that had taken her from me on this very road. As I continued down the highway, I saw something in my rearview mirror. Headlights. They were getting closer, fast. I cursed under my breath, thinking it was just another impatient driver looking to pass me. But as the car neared, my heart skipped a beat. The vehicle was old, a vintage model that seemed out of place on the modern highway. It was a deep, glossy black, with chrome trim that gleamed under the moonlight. The car looked like it had just rolled off the assembly line, yet it was undoubtedly a relic of the past. The ED-ites grew closer, and I realized with a sense of dread that there was something unnatural about them. They weren't normal headlights. They had an eerie, bluish hue that cast an otherworldly glow on the road. I sped up, trying to put distance between me and the mysterious car, but it relentlessly closed in. Panic gnawed at the edges of my mind as I watched the antique car approach at an impossible speed. It was as if it defied the laws of physics. My heart pounded in my chest as the car pulled alongside me, matching my speed. I couldn't see the driver through the tinted windows, and the interior of the car seemed unnaturally dark. Then, in an instant, the car swerved towards me, forcing me off the road. I barely managed to maintain control of my car, but the antique vehicle had disappeared into the night as if it had never been there. Shaken and trembling, I pulled my car back onto the road, my mind racing. What had just happened? It felt like a ghostly encounter, a haunting reminder of my past, but the worst was yet to come. As I continued down the desolate highway, I reached the same stretch of road where Emily and I had met our tragic fate. The air grew colder, and my breath caught in my throat as I saw her standing on the side of the road. It was Emily, in the same white dress she had worn the night of the accident. Her eyes were empty, her face expressionless. I slammed on the brakes, my heart pounding, and she disappeared into the darkness. Tears streamed down my face as I realized the horrifying truth. Emily had died that night on Route 66, but I had too. I was trapped in a never-ending nightmare, doomed to relive that fateful night over and over again. The chilling realization sent shivers down my spine, and I knew there was no escape from this endless cycle of horror. I was a prisoner of the haunted highway, forever bound to my past, and forever tormented by the ghostly echoes of that fateful night. I glanced in my rearview mirror one last time, and there, in the distance, the antique car with the bluish headlights reappeared, closing in fast. It was a specter of doom, a relentless force that would never let me go. As it drew near, I could almost hear a sinister, ghostly laughter echoing in the wind. And with a sudden jolt, the antique car vanished into thin air, leaving me alone on the haunted stretch of Route 66. The haunting on Route 66 was a nightmare that never ended. And as I drove into the endless night, I couldn't help but wonder if I was the hunter or the hunted in this sinister game of the afterlife. In the remote countryside, where the city's clamor and bustle were but distant echoes, 4 friends embarked on a chilling adventure to visit the infamous haunted bridge. It was whispered that a desolate woman had met her tragic end on that very structure, and her restless spirit remained tethered to this world, yearning for release. The gravel road wound through the darkened forest, and our anticipation grew with every mile. Our car's tires crunched on the gravel, and the moon hung low in the sky, casting eerie shadows that danced with the whispering leaves. We followed the time-worn instructions, turning onto the bridge, parking in its ominous stillness, and with trembling hands, we honked the horn 3 times. Silence hung in the air, and our collective breaths held in anticipation. The night seemed endless, and nothing appeared to answer our call. Disappointed and slightly relieved, we turned to leave. But as we drove away, an otherworldly banging, louder than thunder, reverberated through the car, as if something beyond this world was seeking our attention. Panic struck, and we returned to the bridge, only to find its dark expanse eerily quiet. As we turned to leave once more, the banging followed us, now coming from the outside of the car. We froze in terror. There, in the pale moonlight, the ghostly figure of a woman materialized. She was soaked and disheveled, and her eyes were filled with torment. With a malevolent fury, her fingers transformed into gnarled claws, pounding and scratching at the car's exterior. The vehicle shuddered with each relentless assault, and the night was filled with the sound of her spectral fists. She scratched and pounded, leaving ghastly marks on the car's surface as her face contorted in anguish and her laughter became manic. We were paralyzed with fear, but in our desperation, We finally hit the gas pedal, leaving the vengeful spirit behind. Her anguished wails followed us as we sped away, leaving the bridge and its muddy road far behind. The ghostly marks on the car were a haunting reminder of our nightmarish encounter. The legend of the haunted bridge endures, and those who dare to approach it are forewarned of the malevolent spirit that seeks retribution. The ghostly woman's presence still lingers, haunting the night, and I can't help but wonder if she will find another unfortunate soul to torment, as she did with us. In the darkness, her mournful cries echo, and her vengeful spirit remains, yearning for something that has long eluded her grasp.